I was passing through a winner's chapel, and a pastor was talking. By then, I wasn't a member of the church, but the pastor was preaching. And this pastor was declaring a word as I was passing the church. And the word was, "You shall not die, but live to declare the works of God." And the following week, I was kidnapped in Abuja. And the only word I remembered in the hands of the kidnappers, I remember precisely, was that word that the pastor said when I was passing the church: "You shall not die, but live to declare the work of God." And that word was able to help me through that experience. I was able to escape from these kidnappers, and I'm still alive today. My name is Ugo Azuma. I'm a project manager. I'm a born-again Christian, and God is great.
Tell us a little bit about your coming to Jesus story. Before then, what was your life like, and how were you able to come to Jesus?
I think my coming to Jesus story would not be complete without referencing the actual place where the event took place. For me, it was in July 1997 in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. I think it was Winners Chapel precisely. And it was all about God asking me to follow him because he wanted to make me different from what it used to be back in Abia State, or my community, Hichawa, where I come from. So I hearkened to God, and he's passed me through a lot of experiences all this while, and I'm happy that I made that choice.
What was the life like before?
Life was not smooth, rough. Life was not as envisaged, but coming over to Jesus, life has been a bit more defined compared to what it used to be before. So my life is defined now. I know where I'm going, and God has been faithful in guiding me to my destination.
So do you have any story of an incident that characterized your life before you met Jesus?
Yeah, I'll tell you a very important story that happened to me. That was in Mina, before I went for the youth service in Uyo. I was passing through a winner's chapel, and a pastor was talking. By then, I wasn't a member of the church, but the pastor was preaching. And this pastor was declaring a word as I was passing the church. And the word was, "You shall not die, but live to declare the works of God." And the following week, I was kidnapped in Abuja. And the only word I remembered in the hands of the kidnappers, I remember precisely, was that word that the pastor said when I was passing the church: "You shall not die, but live to declare the work of God." And that word was able to help me through that experience. I was able to escape from these kidnappers, and I'm still alive today. So that's great for me.
Wow. So are there experiences that you had in God that you'd like to share?
Now, the most important series of experiences, I'll call it a series of experiences because it's still ongoing up till now, is that coming unto God, I've never been stranded. Even when things seem difficult, he's always made a way for me. I would take a couple of instances because there's so much of experiences. I'll take, for instance, when I was in England, there was a time when we ran out of funds, and precisely an insurance company sent me a letter that period, myself and my wife. They sent me a letter and said, "Mr. Ugo, you paid over your insurance many years back, so we'd like to return some money to you." And some funds were returned to us, and that fund was what we needed at that stage of our life. Another incident was there was a time we traveled to Nigeria. I came back to England from Nigeria, and my mother forced me to take a bag of foodstuff. And that bag of foodstuff got missing in Air France that year. And when I got back to London, Air France sent me a letter and said, we've lost your bag and would like to pay you back per kilo. And what was filled in that bag was yams. And I'll tell you, the amount of money that was given to me on that incident was just what we needed to pay our rent and take us through. I've got lots of these experiences. So for me, it's not the fact that is God favoring us, but is for me, how many times have God shown me his faithfulness? I think they are numerous. I can keep saying it and time again. Every time my work finishes as a civil engineer, God is already prepared another work. So I've always moved from one job to another just because of the favor of God, not because of my title or my qualification, just because of his favor and his mercy. So every time I finish a job, there's another job lined up for me. I've not done interviews for a long time now. So I've got 25 years experience. I can't remember when last I did a proper interview. It's God just giving me opportunities upon opportunities because of his mercies. So yeah, God has been faithful, and it pays to serve God.
What's one experience that you've had after you've given your life to Jesus, or before, whichever one, that you can never forget? You cannot leave your memory because it left such indelible mark on you.
Yeah, before I gave my life to Christ, I'll tell you, my lifestyle was not something encouraging or something to write home about. But following God over the years, I do affirm to the fact that truly I'm happy that I've made this choice, and for me, it's something that I will never forget. And for my children as well, I do use it as a point of reference to my children, and telling them about the importance of following God and what my life was before I started the journey with God, and what my life is now. So for me, it's important that I keep remembering that all the days of my life. His mercies is wonderful.
So apart from post knowing Jesus now, apart from the financial provision and finances and provision for you, what has been one thing that you can say that God has done that is different from what your life used to be? So apart from providing for you and your family and the provision, what other thing is God doing? Has God done in your life?
What other thing that God has done in my life? Yeah, apart from the areas of provision and all that, I think my health has been an area that I would say God has been faithful, because I used to be a person that is so scared and not sure of what's going to happen, and from the place from where I come from, people are more reliant on or other external forces and all that. But with God, He's made me to be steadfast in Him, and made me to rely on Him. And my fear is all gone, because my hope is now totally on Christ. So I can face the day, I can face tomorrow just by His grace. So for me, it's important.
Talking about external forces, have you ever confronted with something that you obviously knew that this was paranormal or paranatural? Have you?
I've had scenes of dreams and visions and all that, and most times I've been confronted with forces of different types, but the most important thing for me is I've always had a heads up because of the grace of God. I've always come out victorious because of the grace of God. So like I said, numerous occasions I've had attacks spiritually in the dreams, and I'll tell you one. Few years back, I used to have a panic attack, and when it kicks in, it's as if I'm losing my breath and I'm gasping for air and all that. But I got to a point where I totally handed it over to God. And at this stage of my life now, when it comes up, I just pray. 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 the Lord reminds me of his words, and by his words and by anchoring on the promises of God, I've been able to overcome that fear. So I've lived above it, but just because of the word of God. So I hold on to the word of God whenever the panic comes. I just, use the scriptures, and God has been faithful to always, take me out of that sin. So now I'm advising other people. I've come across one or two people who the devil is also attacking with that, and I've been able to help them just because of my experience and testimony.
So who is Jesus to you?
For me, Jesus is my father. He's my guide. He's my everything. He's the one that determines who I am, who I would be, and who he wants me to be. So Jesus is just everything that I'm made of, and Jesus is what I rely on.